There is a brand new 2024 Encore. This is a mid-cycle refresh, so it's not a brand new model. And we're going to talk about this design because I think not always the case when new is better, and I think that's what's going on in this kind of facelift that we have for the Buick Encore. First of all, let's talk about some of the spec and tech, and then we're going to jump into Photoshop, of course, talk about the front, side, and rear, and also the interior, because there's something going on in the interior as well that I don't think is necessarily a better deal than the pre-facelift. 24 Encore GX is the first US Buick to have this new Buick logo in the front, which I think looks really good. Buick also adds a new trim level called Avenir to the Encore GX lineup, and you also have the ST, the sportier ST package, now being a standalone trim level. And on the interior, you now have a big glass display with two separate units, one 8-inch gauge cluster, and you also have an 11-inch infotainment system sharing this massive glass panel, which I'm going to show you in just a second. And you have three trim levels to choose from. You have the base preferred, the sportier ST, and the top of the line Avenir. I would personally go for the ST because we have a flat bottom steering wheel, and you also have ST embroidered into the seat, and you also have some black pieces around the lower parts of the car, which I think suits an SUV. It looks good, and it also adds a little bit more of an off-road look to this little SUV. You also now have standard wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you also have wireless charging with a they increased the size of this pad where you put your phone on for, I guess you can charge larger phones now. You have two engine options to choose from. Both of these are 3-cylinder turbo engines. You have the 1.2 liter, which makes 137 horsepower, and then you have the bigger one, the 1.3 liter, and that puts out 155 horses. You can get the new Encore either as a front-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive setup. Starting price for the base trim is $26,895. That's actually down from the pre-facelift version, and you have the luxurious Avenir topping out at $33,195. So now let's jump into Photoshop here. Let's have a look at what's going on. I always thought that the pre-facelift, it was a clean, beautiful little SUV. It has a lot of nice line flow to it, and everything seems to be connected well with each other. You have the grille connecting to this gorgeous simple styling of the headlights, and also simple style of the grille. We do have the older grille emblem here, or logo, in the middle, as you can see. And then look at this beautiful chamfer, this thick chamfer that goes right here. I think it's just a beautiful design, simple, and it doesn't look too aggressive, because cars like this, they don't need to have a frowny face all the time, and everything doesn't have to be aggressive with every single vehicle that comes out. This is a gorgeous, clean, almost timeless design, because all the features, the graphic features, have their right positioning, and they also are connected well with each other. We also like this piece right here. Let's remove this for a second so you can see what I'm talking about. This little chamfer or edge just feels solid, and it's a nice housing for the fog light that's down in the bumper, not the main headlight. The main headlight is still in a pretty traditional spot up here. Now, as you can see in the new one, I really don't think that this is an upgrade from the pre-facelift. I think this looks very confusing in the front end. It looks like something is missing, that there's something wrong with this front end. And the reason I feel that is, I think, because if we look at the graphic features, they're nowhere near as connected and flowy as the pre-facelift. We have this boomerang thing going on up here with a daytime running light. It feels like this is a redesign where Buick just felt like, okay, we need to jump on this trend to put the main headlight in the bumper, but then we also need some sort of daytime running light upstairs above that. But this doesn't connect with anything in the front end. It doesn't connect with the grille in any lines, and it doesn't connect with this lower part either. It just sits here alone with zero connection to the rest of the car. And then we also have this grille now, this beautiful grille in the pre-facelift, now being inverted and being more angry, and I'm not sure why they decided to go with this. design and kind of make this as well into an aggressive, angry looking car. It's not necessary for a 3-cylinder turbo little SUV to have a frowny face like we have here, but I understand they kind of want to jump on the trend of having the main headlights down here in the bumper, and they needed to solve the brand identity here by adding those LEDs on top of it somehow, but I don't think it is a good solution at all. But we do have the new logo in the front end, as you can see here, comparing that to the old one. This right here is the ST trim. This is the one I would choose because comparing it to the Avenir, up here you can see that we have the wheelhouses and some plastic cladding down here being gloss black, which I think looks good. It reduces the height of the car, and it also adds, as I said, a little bit more of that off-road feel to this design, which I think it's a right call to make when you have an SUV. And we also have the same lines in the body as we had before, which I think are beautiful. Little styling in the body surfacing of the side. I definitely prefer these black wheels over the silver ones. One thing that I wish they did with the ST, since everything is blacked out, I wish they would have blacked out this trim piece going around the window, and also the front end grille. Have this be black, because chrome doesn't, I don't think it looks good, specifically not with the sportier ST trim where everything else is blacked out, if that makes sense. Now, I think they wanted to copy the Blazer, and it looks like they really tried to make something similar to the Blazer, but it didn't work out as well at all. And the reason being, as I said before, just look at the connection in the Blazer, which I think is a decently good looking car. We have a connection where the headlights, the daytime running lights, actually is part of the outline of the grille. So it feels like it's supposed to sit here because it has connections to everything else. And all the graphics also sit underneath this line, so everything starts underneath here, and above it you just have the hood. While in the Encore, up here, you can see that, as I said, there is no connection to anything. And then we have this line, almost making it look like an Hyundai EV or something. Not really a huge fan of the front end. So looking at the rear end of the pre-facelift, comparing it to the new one, we do have a couple of changes here, but this is one of these classic facelifts where they focus on the front end a lot more than anything else, the front end and the interior, and also a little bit in the powertrains. But look at this, I think this looks perfect. I think this looks even more modern than we have in the facelift. We have a dynamic looking taillight and the LED in here going from thick with a nice housing for it, and as you can see, they kept all the same outlines for the new taillights. However, these remind me a little bit of the BMW X3 taillight, the new X3. However, I think they're actually better executed here in the new Encore than it is in the BMW X3, because we have more of a dynamic outline for the taillight itself, even though I don't think this looks any better than the pre-facelift taillight that we have up here. And I wanted to show you the Encore ST, the sportier version, and the differences between these. We have a body painted lower part of the luxurious Avenir, when in the ST you can see that we have this being blacked out. Again, I think that looks better than the Avenir, which still looks pretty good, but I want to have those blacked out pieces at the lower part of the car. Now, last but not least, let's have a look at this interior. And I have to say, I'm gonna repeat myself here, but I have to say I do prefer the old one over the new one, because right now we just have a very anonymous looking glass panel stretching across the entire front end, with the infotainment here 11 inches and the 8-inch gauge cluster all in one single panel. I definitely prefer, as I'm sure all of you know by now, to have this treatment where we have a housing for the gauge cluster. You can see that they're still analog here, and I don't mind that at all. We still have the display in the middle here, which you can configure and do whatever you want with. And we also have a decently sized infotainment screen. I don't think infotainment screens needs to be big TVs that we stick onto the dash. I think this is perfectly fine for size of infotainment screen. I have to give it to Buick though. I think this is, they just try to integrate this and make it a little more interesting outline shape of this screen that we have. It's not just a static rectangle that sits on top of it. You have some angles in the sides, which I think looks better than if we were to just have a BMW or Mercedes Actually, BMW only does that. Mercedes have more of an organic feeling in their displays. But I think it's a decent job by Buick to integrate this display. However, in regards to both the exterior and the interior, I still prefer the pre-facelift Encore.